Well, church is a place where we can talk about all kinds of things, right? You okay if we talk about investments today? I want to talk to you about an investment that you may just want to make for a really, really good return because, you see, when it comes to investments, we all have these questions. What is the best? Is it dividend stocks? Is it growth stocks? Is it blue chip funds? Is it this? Is it Warren Buffett funds? Is it cannabis? Where do we make the best investment? And, some of you most likely have your trusted financial advisors that you go to for that. Maybe you follow the Motley Fool team, and all the advice that they give you for investments. But maybe you're even one of those people who has such an interest and time that you can sit down and you can watch shows like The Bottom Line, like Money Matters or The Shark Tank. Right, and you kind of lean into this and make your own decisions when it comes to the investments. But wherever we are in that, the reason that we have an interest in investments is because of the return. All of us want a great return for our investments. Today I want to talk to you about an investment that's going to give you a great return, and I'm probably not the best one to advise you on financial investments, but let me talk about an investment today that I think you'll really want to make, and an investment that will give you a really good return. We're going to go to the scripture text of Luke chapter 10, verse 38, and I'm going to use the English Standard Version today to talk to you about this very familiar passage. As we begin to read this text, no doubt you're going to be reminded of a time when you heard about this before. This is the story about Mary and Martha and the time that Jesus came to their house and some advice that he gave them on investments. So it begins by saying, now, as they simply means Jesus and his disciples. A couple chapters before this, we read about Jesus sending out 72 people. 72 guys to go out and do some ministry. Some Bible scholars or interpreters think that they may all have been included in this when they went to this village with Jesus. I don't know if it was just Jesus and his 12 disciples, just Jesus and 3 disciples, or if it was Jesus and 72 people. We're not quite sure, but the number really isn't significant to the story. But here's what matters. They went on their way, and Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed her into his house. Next verse, she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. Now, sometimes when we read this text, we have this image already in our minds. Here's Mary in the living room. Over here is Martha in a different part of the house. And, Jesus comes in and he's sitting there on the, chair, and Mary just sits at his feet. That might be the perfect image for us to have, but nevertheless, we need to see her at the Lord's feet, and she listened to his teaching. Next verse begins with a word of contrast. You know that every time you read that word but, there is a contrast that's coming. So what we have right now is Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus, but there's a contrast. But, which simply means the contrast is going to be something extremely different, or the opposite side of the whole spectrum, and it was in a way. But Martha, there's the contrast, but Martha was distracted by much serving. So here's the contrast, sitting at the feet of Jesus or distracted by much serving. And she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work and to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. Another word of contrast shows up immediately. But, right? So now here's Martha over here complaining about all the things that she has to do, all the things that she's doing, again, contrasted to Mary, who's sitting at the feet of Jesus. And now now there's another contrast. But the Lord answered her. Now I want to stop right here for a moment and kind of just talk about this, because the Lord says, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and you're troubled about many things. Now, you know that Martha lost her mind because Jesus used her name twice. That's what happens when someone loses their mind. You have to call them twice. Martha, Martha. She lost her mind. And the reason that she lost her mind was because she was angry at her sister Mary, who wasn't doing anything at all to help her in serving the Lord. So she couldn't even talk to her sister Mary, and we sometimes have this idea that Martha is so angry and she is fuming so much that she can't even speak to her sister Mary. Nowhere in the text do we ever see Martha saying, hey, Mary, you know what? Could you come over here and help me a little bit? I've got a lot of veggies to chop up here for the tacos, right? So can you just come and help me a little bit and get some things done? We don't see that in the story. Maybe that was a first approach. We don't know. But what we see in this story is Martha in the kitchen, Mary at the feet of Jesus. Martha is angry because she has so much to do and Mary's not helping her. And so she even says, Lord, would you talk to my sister and tell her to help me? Now look what Jesus says to her. You are, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and you're troubled by many things. Can I just stop there for a moment and just say, I love Martha. I love Martha. I get her because I'm kind of, see, if there's any contrast to make in this story, and if you and I are going to assign ourselves to one of these characters, now I understand this is kind of a gendered illustration, but let's put the gender aside. Let's just look at stereotypes. Let's look at the people, the types of people. And if we're going to assign ourselves to somebody in this story, I'll just admit right now, I have to assign myself to Martha. I get her. I get work. I get busyness. I get her anxiety with all the things that she has to do. I kind of get her self-pity when I have to work and everybody else can be out there doing other things that I can't be a part of. You know what? It would make me feel a whole lot better if I just knew there was at least one other Martha in this room. So, you know what? I'm just going to take a vote. And if you have a Martha, just like slip your hand up like, any other Marthas out here? Oh, good. Because I didn't want to be the only one that kind of gets caught up in this busyness and doesn't have time at the feet of Jesus. So I'm glad that there's some other Marthas here. So this is good for us. I think this is going to be great for us. Did you know that we now, as Americans, work 160 hours more a year than we did 35 years ago? This whole technical revolution that was supposed to solve that problem has actually made it worse. We're working more now than we were 35 years ago. And the Western world, which is also the civilized world, is the country where we work the most. We work more than anybody else in this world. I remember the day that I was in Haiti on a mission trip. We were at the Burrell compound, one of the compounds that our church serves, and every single day at 4 o'clock, right on the nose, we stopped working. And we sat around on the patio and had some really, really good strong coffee. And we sat there and we talked. And that went for about an hour and a half, and then we got up and got ready for dinner, right? And just took that time. I was so impressed by that, loved that time just to sit and rest so much. I decided I'm going to institute that when I come back to America. And I did. And we had 3 days of that, which was just really, really good, where we just kind of stopped and had some coffee at 4 o'clock. And man, pretty soon we got right back into the routine again. My son-in-law, who grew up in Argentina and gave us the privilege of visiting that country several different times, they have the beautiful tradition there of the afternoon time where you just kind of stop work from 12 to 3 or whatever that is, and you just kind of sit back and just relax and sit around in a circle and drink some mate and have some pastries and just enjoy the downtime. I never brought that one back to America because that would not work here in America, right? So we just can't do that. But so we love to work. I'm wondering if Luke chapter 10 was just written for Americans, because we're the ones that get so caught up in the busyness. We love work, and we get the anxiety that comes with all the trouble that comes with working so hard and being involved in so many things to do, and so many good things to do, which, by the way, was exactly what Martha was doing. She's not a wicked woman. She's not doing anything bad at all. In fact, what she's doing is very good. She's making sure all the guests have something to drink. She's making sure that the house is in order. She's making sure that everybody's going to have tacos to eat right around 5 o'clock. Everyone's going to have some food to eat. She's not doing anything bad, unless she's dumping a bunch of processed sugar or GMO products into her food. But she's not, other than that, she's not doing anything bad at all with this. She's just doing a lot of things that are good. And that's exactly sometimes what we get caught up in. She's simply caught up in things that need to be done in her mind. I think we can all identify with Martha. We're all very, very busy people, but the Lord said to her, Martha, Martha, you've lost your mind right? You are anxious and you're troubled about many things. Well, let me stop right there again. I know we didn't get very far here in this text, but let me start right there again because I want you to know I commend hard work. I do. I commend hard work. I like to work hard. And you know what? Here at Grand Point Church, we do not hire people just because they love Jesus. That is a prerequisite to come on staff here, but we hire people to get a job done. Our staff here at Grand Point Church works very, very hard. We commend hard work. We love hard work, but never to the point of kind of doing it with neglecting the one thing. And see, you do too. You value work. Some of you work hard. You have a job to do. You're building companies. You're making sales. You're caring for patients. You're cleaning houses. You're policing the streets. And you're doing all these good things. But we've got to ask ourselves the question, is that it? Is that all that there is? Is it just hard work that we do and a paycheck that we get so that we can accumulate some more things and then work hard again? Is that all that there is? Is that the end? Just to work hard, make money, and then accumulate stuff? I want you to look what happens next. Jesus says, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and you're troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Again, the contrast is one thing. Listen, I love the simplicity of this. There's no complexity in this at all. In fact, if I had one thing to do, I think I could be a Mary. I think I could be a Mary. If all I had to do was be a husband, that's it. I'm just going to be Penny's husband. That's the only thing that I have to do. Man, I could give her all the time that she wants. I could spend every minute with her of the day. She thinks she would like that. I think she would get so tired of me if we did that, right? But I could serve her. I could, go everywhere with her. We could do grocery shopping together. If I just had one thing to do, I could do that well. You know what? If I could just be Pop to my 9 grandkids, I could spend individual time with all of them. I could write them letters. I could send them notes. I could make phone calls. I could go and visit them. I could sit down and do crafts with them. Well, maybe not that, but I could do a lot of things with them if that was the one thing that I had to do. If I just had the one thing to do as pastor in this church, that would be amazing. One thing. Listen, I could get out to visit with we could have dinner together at least once a year, right? I could just pour into this. I could do all kinds of things if I just could have one thing to lead the denomination. If I could just write, and my aging body, I need to take care of this body, right? So if I had one thing to do, go to the gym and keep cycling and take care of I could be in great shape. There's a couple rooms in our house right now that need some attention. We need some bathroom work and we need this and that. If I had one thing to do, just remodel my house, I'd be at Lowe's every morning. I'd be working around. We'd get her done. But you see, the thing is, I don't just have one thing to do. There's like all these things to do. I mean, life is so busy. I've got this and I've got this. And, I've got to watch this show occasionally. I've got to listen to this podcast and I've got to read this book. And we have all of these things that we get caught. All good things, by the way. They're all good things. See, my list could go on and on and on, and so could yours. And my guess is that everything on your list is a good thing. It's a really good thing. But here's the point that we want to make in this story. There's nothing wrong with all of those things that you have to do that are on your list, that are on your schedule, but just don't let those things entangle you to the point that you miss the one thing. I think that's exactly what the writer of Hebrews was talking about in Hebrews chapter 12 when he says, listen, let us run the race with endurance, but don't get entangled by all of these things and the sin that so easily besets us. But the entanglement part is a lot of good things. And see, what Martha was doing in the kitchen that day was a lot of good things. But Jesus said to her, Martha, Martha, you're troubled, you're upset by many things, but Mary has chosen the good portion. Again, notice the word but. There's a contrast. And the contrast is between the many things that Martha was doing and the one thing that Mary was doing. And what was Mary doing? What is the one thing that she was doing? She's just sitting at the feet of Jesus. And see, that's why you've got to be really, really careful when we have all of these things to do. You have to be careful that work doesn't work you. You have to be careful that life doesn't live you. You have to be careful that you don't lose your mind over a football game or that you don't get caught up in a 3-hour epic, of just because you have to watch this particular show. You can't get entangled in all those things. They're good, but they're not worth forfeiting the one thing that is necessary. one thing that is necessary is to sit at the feet of Jesus, to commune with him, to walk with him. And listen, you might have this image right now that, this simply means that I've got to sit down and I've got to, light the fire and I've got to pull the fleece up over me and I've got to have my hot chocolate and I've got to have my feet sticking out so I can take a picture of them. And, that's not what this is. This is not that. This is wherever it is, whatever it looks like for you to spend some time with Jesus. This might be on your drive. It might be on your commute. This might be, just kind of in your own space somewhere. It might be sitting down in a comfortable place like I fall asleep when I do that, so I've got to do something different, right? It might be coming to church just like you are this morning. This is a moment when we're all together sitting at the feet of Jesus. We're leaning in to learn from him. We're worshiping him. We're receiving from him. But it's daily moments like this that perhaps need to be part of our schedule as well. And so you don't have to have this elated sense of emotion even to come at the feet of Jesus. You don't have to come all clean and perfect, because if that were the case, none of us would be there. See, the beautiful thing is we can come just as we are. We just have to come, and we just have to sit. And we sit, and we quiet ourselves down, and we lean into his word, and we lean into just some communion with him, and we receive from him. And it's amazing the difference that investment of time will make in your life. We just have to remember that he's there. I guess what I'm trying to say to you this morning is this. I'm just trying to plead with you. And that is to take some time to spend at the feet of Jesus. Invest some time there, because it's an investment that will have just an incredible return for you. And just sit down maybe with the scriptures and just, or the devotional book or whatever it is that you have, and just take that time with him. I know some of you do that, and some of you do that well, but others of us, like Martha, the Marthas in us, man, we get up and we hit the list and we hit the road running. And some of you would think that as a pastor, obviously I would do this faithfully every day, and I try to, I want to, and I often do. But there's times when, again, the busyness of life or the busyness of even a lot of good things maybe keep me from this. But Jesus says, one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. You see the return on the investment? If you invest some time at the feet of Jesus, you'll receive the good portion, and it's an investment that will never be taken away from you. You don't have to worry about losing in this one. It's secure, and it's there for you. So here's how I want to kind of just wrap this up this morning. There's three things that I want you to take away from this. Number one is this: you were made for this. You were made for this. You were not made to be busy and distracted and upset and worried about many things. No, you were made to sit at his feet. Now, many of you might be thinking, well, wait a minute. Aren't we called to serve God? And service is not just sitting there. Service is doing things. Service is being busy. Well, there's no dispute among believers about this. The Bible is very clear. He made us for himself. And Jesus frequently calls us to obedience and to service. And when we think about obedience and service, we think about doing things. We've got to be busy. And the more things that we do, the more obedient we are, the more he's going to love us. And we come to the end of our lives, and we're hoping that we've done enough good things for him to let us into heaven. Right? So it becomes about things that we do and about the busyness that we're involved in. So Jesus' words to Martha might seem strange to us. Right? Why does someone who has called us to obedience and called us to service ask one of his servants to stop working and to sit down and listen? Well, the answer lies in God's priority for us. Nowhere in the Bible are we ever told to serve him at the expense of knowing him. Yes, we're fashioned by God, haven't been made for himself, but he does not first fashion us for usefulness. The very first thing that he does is fashions us for knowing him. He does not fashion us first for usefulness. He fashions us first for knowing him. Now, this is a far cry from our utilitarian thinking, because when you and I make something, we think in terms of usefulness. If we're going to make something, it has to work for us. It has to produce. It has to give us a return. And when it stops being useful, then we throw it away. But that's not the way God kind of works. See, we make things for a practical purpose, and our only occasion to make something for the sake of its own beauty is when we're creative or artistic. Now, I want you to hang on for that for a moment. See, parents, we can relate. We don't have children just so that we have more help around the house. Or maybe some of you do, but it's not really the idea. We have children so that we can know them and enjoy them. And so it is with God. He is first and foremost an artist. He's a craftsman, and he's a father who enjoys his children. He is not a factory worker just producing a product that will work for him. No, you and I were created for him to enjoy. You need to know that as a child of God, he wants you to enjoy him. See, we often consider God as the creator, and we are his created people, and he created us for a practical end result. So in our minds, that practical end result is that we've got to be doing something. We've got to be serving. We've got to be busy. And we sometimes pride ourselves on that busyness as well. See, we view him in terms of obedience and service. And it's easy for us to do that because that's how we would look at things if we were in his place. We're great fans of usefulness. And again, as I said, when something ceases to be useful, then we throw it away. But just know, God is not after your usefulness. He's not after your usefulness. No, he's an artist who just wants to enjoy his work. That does not mean that he will not use you, but he will not use you before he has enjoyed your company, not before you've made the investment at the feet of Jesus. The best thing to do is spend time at the feet of Jesus and then go from there into the usefulness, because only then will you be used in exactly the ways that he designed for you, planned for you. Otherwise, we're going to be so busy with things of our own making, things that we think are so important but really don't make a difference at all. And we're going to be busy, we're going to be frustrated in the process, but when we sit at the feet of Jesus and move from there into our usefulness, there's going to be a lot of satisfaction and a lot of joy that comes from that. So number one, you were made for this. The second thing I want you to know today is that you're invited to this. You're invited into this. Now, we all know what soul weariness is. We all experience it. Deep down in, sometimes, we just get tired. Maybe it's our spiritual energies. We just seem cold. And like Brian said this morning, sometimes we just seem distant. We know that God is there. I mean, we know the right answers, right? But it just seems like we're cold and there's not that fire there. There's not, and so we cry maybe, awake my soul, God, because it's not awake. It feels like it's sleeping. And we all experience that, though, in different ways and for different reasons. And sometimes we can point to a particular factor or something that happened that makes us feel that way. But often we can't. Often our weariness is simply the accumulation of the multi-layered intersections of things in life. Things that just happen and they come. It's the kids' schedules, it's our schedules, it's this that happens, it's this that breaks, and all the things that we need to keep doing, and it just makes us weary. Sometimes it's our body frailties, right? And we begin to wear down physically. Sometimes it's emotional heartbreaks. Something happens and it just wrecks us emotionally. Sometimes it is the consequences of sin. And all of those things combined just make us weary. And because our burdens are not simple, they can't be solved with a simple platitude like, cheer up, things are going to be better in a little while. That usually doesn't work. But a simple promise, a very simple promise, can relieve a very complex burden, provided that we believe the power behind the promise is complex and strong enough to relieve our heaviness. And it's into our weariness, listen to this, it's into our weariness that the most complex power in existence speaks a promise as simple and hopeful and refreshing as we could possibly want. And here it is. Jesus says, come to me. Come just sit at my feet. Come just spend some time with me. All you who are weary, all you who are tired, everyone that's carrying this burden, everyone that's laden with something, just come and sit at my feet, and I will give you what? I'm going to give you some rest. I'm going to give you a great return on that investment that you made just to sit at my feet. And then Jesus says, for I am gentle, I am lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And just in case you think this is only for the weary of soul, this invitation is open to every situation in your life that weighs heavy on you. Jesus says, just come and sit at my feet. I'm going to take that heaviness from you. That's why he says this one thing is necessary. Only one thing is necessary, and Mary has chosen what is best. The last thing I want you to leave with is this. Not only were you made for this, not only are you invited into this, but you need to know that you are empowered by this. You are empowered by this. At his feet, you are invited to this, and at his feet, you are empowered by this. And here's what I mean by that. Jesus said to Mary that Mary has chosen the good portion. I don't know what that portion was for her, but portion is exactly what you and I need. This is where you find your portion at the feet of Jesus. Mary has chosen the good portion, and it's not going to be taken away from her. In fact, it's the best investment that she ever made at the feet of Jesus. You're going to have a good return. You're going to have a good portion. Your portion is strength for the day. Your portion is sufficient grace for whatever situation that you're going through. Your portion is wisdom for you to make the right decisions. Your portion is the courage to step out of your comfort zone and do something bold. Your courage is the humility to avoid living the limited life of pride. Your portion is the power that enables you for all things. Your portion is to love those people with the love of Christ. That's what happens. All of this happens at the feet of Jesus. Let me just wrap this up this morning by just a very, very practical application. I want to make this as practical as I can, and that's this. As Matt Chandler says, only a fool would exchange bottles of water for gold in the desert. Only a fool would change bottles of water for gold in the desert. You'd be crazy to do that. Nobody gives away a sandwich for cash when they're starving. There's one thing, and here's what we do. This is really a simple exercise this morning that I want to lead you through as we close this today. I just want to ask you the question. I want to ask you myself the question. Are you neglecting the one thing that is necessary? Anybody in this room that's a Martha, maybe if you're a Mary, are you neglecting the one thing that is necessary? I mean, there's a billion things that we could do that we think are necessary, right? We've many things. Oh, Jesus said, no, you're anxious. You're upset about the many things. One thing is necessary. I mean, don't answer that out loud. Just answer that quietly. I mean, we're in church. This is no place for you to have an honest confession. Are you neglecting the one thing that is necessary? Just ask that in your own heart. And here's what I want you to do. Just scroll through your day. Think about your day. I had a gentleman come to me after the first service. See, I thought when you're retired, everybody becomes a Mary. I mean, you have all the time in the world just to sit at the feet. I mean, you read your Bible half a day, and you pray for 2 hours, you have dinner, and maybe you get a doctor. I thought that's how it works, but this gentleman came to me, and he said, you know what? I don't know what it is, but he said, even as a retired person, this guy's in his 80s. He said, my days just get away from me. He says, my wife and I try to read the Bible together in the mornings, but sometimes, I mean, we have doctor's appointments, and we have this. I don't know that it makes any difference, even in retirement. See, here's the thing. I think, you know what, Satan uses this busyness thing in every way that he can. I always love what C.S. Lewis said. Satan does not care how busy you are doing good things, as long as he can render you ineffective. And if you neglect the one thing, he's got you. He's got you. You'll be so busy doing so many good things, but you're going to be ineffective in every single one of them. You're going to be wasting a lot of your valuable time, your life. That's exactly where Satan wants us. He wants us in this busyness. Man, this hits me hard because I know that Satan, works for me too to try to keep me from being ineffective. And if he can keep me from the feet of Jesus, that's where he wants us. So I'm asking you the question this morning, are you neglecting that at all in your life? And then if we could take it a step further and just engage ourselves in this question. Don't engage your spouse at this point. Don't engage your children, just you. This is just you. If we could ask ourselves the question, how's it working? How's it working for you? So you get caught up in the busyness, and you think, you think you're really important because you have all these things that you do, and you have these lists. Let me just ask you, how's that working for you if you're forfeiting the one thing? I don't know, maybe you're weary, and maybe you're tired, and maybe you're upset, and maybe you're confused, maybe you're anxious about life and about a lot of different things. And it's kind of what happens if you forfeit the one thing. For those of you that are very, very disciplined and you've got this one thing down and this is going really good for you, how's that working for you? Man, you share that with the rest of us because this is where we all want to be, isn't it? We want to make these investments at the feet of Jesus. And here's the thing, if you honestly answer my first question today by saying, you know what, I'm absolutely neglecting the needful thing. Here's the great news. There doesn't have to be any penance. No, you don't have to pay to get back into this. You don't need to whip your back. You don't need to punish yourself. You don't have to make all these massive sweeping promises like, oh man, I'm never going to watch another football game in my life. Now, if the Holy Spirit leads you to do that, I mean, that's fine, but to me, that's pushing a little bit too far, right? I don't think you have to go crazy with, but you might just say, you know what, I want to come back. I really want to kind of commit myself to this. I want to get back to his feet. Maybe the first thing that we do when we come back to his feet is we just ask for forgiveness. Maybe we come back and we say, oh, man, Jesus, I want to make this investment a little bit more regular in my life. I want the return that comes from this, from sitting at your feet. I want to be empowered for life. I'm sorry I haven't spent much time there. Jesus, I'm sorry, man, I got so busy. I got so wrapped up in this, and this might just be a prayer that you breathe on the way to work, on the way to the gym, on, wherever you're going early in the morning. You just kind of want to spend some time at his feet. Maybe it's just listening to a worship song. Taking some time in the Word, even if it's 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, if that's all that you have, at least take that time at the feet of Jesus. And I think when you discover the return, that time will grow into 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and maybe even 60 minutes. Because the return is so good, and you realize that you're getting so much more done in your day than when you neglected the time at the feet of Jesus. Maybe we just need to get back there. Maybe Jesus is calling to you this morning, and I think he is. And maybe for some of you, he's using your name twice. Right? Martha, Lawrence. It's because I've lost my mind, right? That's when you use your name twice. But I think Jesus is calling us today, and I love the way that Jesus came to Martha. See, he didn't come to her and say, Martha, you're an idiot. It's not the way Jesus approached her. He didn't come and he didn't say, Martha, you've lost your mind. You're a psychopath, right? Why can't you be like your sister? Jesus did not do that at all. He's great. He doesn't say any of that. He just says, Martha, you're anxious and you're troubled about many things, but Mary has chosen the good portion. I'm not going to take that away from her. There's just such gentility in his rebuke. And so it is for us this morning. Jesus is whispering our names, some of us twice, and he's saying, you're anxious and you're troubled and you're upset about many things. Won't you just give those things to me? Won't you give those things to me? Jesus will tell you, you weren't designed to carry those in the first place. No, you were made for this, remember? You weren't made for busyness. You weren't made to be upset. You weren't made to be anxious. You weren't made to be so busy. You were made to be at his feet. Jesus says, listen, you give all that busyness to me. Won't you come and give them to me? Just sit and eat the good portion. Quit trading water for gold in the desert. Come spend some time at my feet. Because this is the best investment that you will ever make. Let's pray. God, this morning I want to thank you for this story that is so real for us. So many of us can identify with Martha. And we thank you for the vivid reminder today just to sit at the feet of Jesus. Holy Spirit, right now, I ask that you stir your people's hearts toward you. I just think sometimes you scream from heaven and you just scream out to us and you say, who asked you to do all this? God, would you help us to slow down a little bit? Maybe a lot of bit. Would you stir within us a renewed passion for those quiet moments with you? Moments in the Word. moments just to sit and listen, quiet times to pray. God, I pray that you would help us and keep us from getting caught up in the storm of busyness. Keep us from getting caught up in the many things and help us to focus on that one thing. In your beautiful name I pray. Amen.